Hello everyone, we're going to talk about calorimetry today. Now when I hear the word calorimetry, I think of calories. When I think of calories, I think of food. Food, nutrition, diets, they all have to deal with calories. But really, calories is just energy. Energy we take in, or calories we take in from food when we eat it, or the calories we burn, or the energy we have used when we do exercise, when we're trying to work out or something. So calories is just another word for energy, and calorimetry has to deal with energy. By the end of this video, you should be able to define enthalpy and how to measure it, and then also calculate enthalpy using an equation that we're going to learn about. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about enthalpy. What is enthalpy? Enthalpy is the heat flow of a system at a constant pressure. And because we're talking about heat flow, we label enthalpy as H. Now when I think about heat flow, and being the nerd that I am, I usually think of Fantastic Four's Human Torch. Now you may not know this, but Chris Pratt played Human Torch in Fantastic Four back in the day, before he was great in Captain America, and there's a new movie coming out soon, which I'm excited for. But before that, he played the Human Torch. And the Human Torch, really, his superpower is going through a really exothermic reaction. And that exothermic reaction is releasing heat in the form of a fire around him. So that's how chemistry and thermochemistry is being used in the superhero world, which is pretty cool. But for us, we're going to talk about enthalpy as energy flow between two objects. And that is two objects at high or low temperatures, so different temperatures, and how heat flows from object 1 here to object 2, or from high temperature to low temperature. And we talked about that with soda and ice in the previous videos. So enthalpy basically, though, is heat flow from one object to another, or the system to the surroundings. But it also has to deal with Human Torch. Moving on, though, what is a calorimeter and a calorimetry? Calorimeter is a device used to measure calorimetry, and calorimetry is basically the measurement of heat flow or enthalpy into or out of a system, to the surroundings or from the surroundings. And they are both dealing in chemical and physical processes. So it has to deal with any sort of reaction, and when we turn a liquid to a gas, or a solid to a liquid through melting, something like that. So we can measure the heat flow using a calorimeter. And there are two different types of calorimeters. There's a constant pressure calorimeter and a constant volume calorimeter. And a constant volume calorimeter is called a bomb calorimeter, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But basically, what's going on with both of these calorimeters is that there's a reaction going on inside a container. And that reaction produces a temperature change. And that temperature change is measured through a thermometer. Now, the difference between the two is that in the constant pressure calorimeter, the reaction is happening in the liquid. So your reactants are liquids, and they are occurring right in the container. While in a constant volume calorimeter, your reaction may not be in liquid form. It might be a solid form or something else. So you need a sort of reaction chamber, which is surrounded by water, and that water then is changing temperature with the transfer of heat, and that temperature is then measured in a constant volume calorimeter. But either way, both calorimeters use temperature change, and measure temperature change, I should say. And that temperature change is then used in this equation, Q equals mc delta T, where Q is the energy transferred, which is what we're trying to find, M is the mass of the water or any other substance, C is the heat capacity of that water or any other substance, and then the triangle here is a delta. Delta is a Greek letter, it's a triangle, but delta means change. So delta T is the temperature change, which was measured by the calorimeter. And so we plug it into this equation, and then we get the energy transfer, the exact amount of energy transferred, or enthalpy. And that's what we want out of this whole experiment, this whole device. And so with that being said, we have now defined enthalpy as the heat flow of a system, and how we can use the device calorimeter, and there's two types of them, to measure it. And then we also calculated, using a new equation, the enthalpy change from the temperature change we measured in a calorimeter. So with that, if you have any questions, bring them tomorrow. Other than that, have a great night.